Now, before you rinse me on the hat, my hair's a mess. I love New Year's, one of my favourite times, party with the friends, and also I'm in quite a rush today. I've got a barbecue to get to, few chess mates are having a shindig, so we're diving in here quick and dirty, a couple of incredible Gukesh games and so unexpected. No one saw this coming in the rapid section. This is round 4 and 5. Apologies, I can't get to the latest action for the reasons mentioned, so let's enjoy these classics, and we're starting here with the first of two stunners. It's his game against Nodebek Abdusatorov with black and playing a Nimzo Indian defense upon knight c3. He does it with a whoosh. Now we get this classical variation, d5 selected, many different moves, and the point here is that white now has the bishop pair straight out the opening, but look at black, castled, got a little pony in the game, ahead in the development, right? So this is the strategic battle. Can white get settled, get the king to safety before black can do anything nasty? Then you're doing well in the long term. So Gukesh explodes with that c5 push. Now we see bishop b5 here. h6 puts the question, you want to hold on to the bishops if you can, and there's really a few different ideas here, but this one very unusual. Pawn to a5. What is all that about? It's actually a pawn sacrifice. You can go for it immediately here, but I'm not going to show those lines because we do see it captured in just a moment. Bishop c6 was first played. The rook saves itself. You can't quite win a pawn here trying to use this pin because after black takes, they also counter on your queen. No good. So we run it back. We saw takes on c5. Pawn recaptures here, and the best way to play long-term steady advantage is not do this. What was the line I was looking at? Okay, no, it is roughly like this. Bishop takes here, or you can take on f6 first. Let's run with this line, and it's a small advantage to white. Or you can play this way. Let's run back, making a mess. Apologies. You take here. This is what I had prepared. And you double the pawns. You leave these in the center. Slightly better structure for white, but not too much in it. Now let's run back, because Nodebek didn't do that. Didn't shatter the pawns or anything like that. He did take on d7, but then he took here on c5. And this is a mistake, because bishop a6 scythes down the diagonal and crucially stops the white king from getting to safety. So the queen centralizes. We're not going to get too hung up on every question mark. There's a threat to shatter the pawns, so this is a great enterprising move. Pawn to g5. Great way to play, energetic, kick back the bishop and then centralize this one. And there's this incredibly difficult idea to stop of hitting here and hitting here with check. What an octopus. Now we see a battle therefore emerging for the c-file. It explains this move, which looks so weird on the surface of it, but it prepares to challenge. Queen d1 is horrible, but it was a tough position. Knight d2 was better to challenge this piece, and there's this amazing pawn sack here of d4. It actually opens the queen on the g2 pawn in many of the lines here. You know, think takes. You don't actually have to cash in that soon though. Rook e8 strong. At the end of the day, the king is perpetually stuck in the center here. Incredible ideas, but missed. Rook c8 immediately from Gukesh. This knight takes the chance to centralize, breathing a sigh of relief, but look at this one. A seahorse is spawned. It's the idea that we spoke about. You've achieved your objective, and how tough is this? Rook c2 played because there was a threat to fork and win an exchange. a4 now cements on these light squares, and after king d2 you're in a world of pain. h4 was the best way to try and get some counterplay. You know, bring the queen out, open the rook. It could be a balanced game after that, but it's absolute craziness. King d2 was desperately tried, but look at that. The butt flap falling out the evaluation because we now see rook b7. Very powerful slow motion idea. You want to crash through on that pawn. It's defended by the rook, But what if bishop d3, removing the defender of the pawn? You know, inverting this idea of putting a minor piece on d3. So queen c1 over protects the pawn and hits this knight twice, but now we see bishop c4, intercepts the attack, threatens to bounce around in many of the lines. We see f3 to stop the knight hopping to e4 now, queen a5 check, everything joining the party. You know, this bishop allowed that one to come here when it moved out the way. What a harmony, what a cutting down these diagonals. And so we see king d1, knight b3, and you just can't fight against this. If you take like this, which you'd love to do, then there's bishop takes and you're in a pin. The rook is converging. The other one can double, maybe not straight away, but this guy is just locked out of the game, right? It's game over. So we come back, no takes. Bishop e1 was desperately tried, counter-attacking on the black queen, but simply queen a6, and we saw resigns. Because the queen's basically in jail, it has one square, then the game could proceed like this, and I'll just show you a few moves to give the idea. You win the exchange, but that's not all here. You generate this huge attack. White's basically playing a rook down. Here's a sample, and it can actually lead to some of the most brutal checkmating ideas. Gukesh started the day with a bang with this one. Now we jump over to this game because Fabi was his round 2 opponent. I mean, it doesn't get any easier. He goes for this kind of Catalan pawn structure. Surely you castle, but no, he's just teasing. Plays the explosive c4 and goes on this side quest here. Castles, streams the bishop down here, but as usual, Fabi erecting the big black centre here, or BBC for short, gets a great position out of the opening. He's so well prepared, always is, but Gukesh has become a bit of a master at taking people out of their prep, I feel, even if it's not the best moves. Castle is top here, but he plays pawn h4. Very enterprising idea, aggressive. The knight jumps back to f6, looking at the newly weakened square. Now we see castles heading for the storm. e5 is played, rook c1, bishop f5, pawn d3, and after rook c8, you could go knight e4, but it's in a way a tiny bit dull because it can lead to a lot of liquidation. Something like this, right? Maybe the queens come off, maybe in a moment, you know, something like this. You're looking pretty level, but no knight e4, no sending the pieces into the blender, knight d2, and it's a far more interesting game now. Now, if the knight hops straight away, which we see in just a moment, then you can play knight d5. There isn't quite the adequate protection anymore. It's just a little bit annoying. So we see bishop e6. You know, I was wondering why. Why nudge back with this bishop? Looks quite good there. Just seems strange. This seems to be the point. Now after knight c4, you can hop forward. This square is still covered. And it actually is a very risky moment for the white player. Knight e3 is best here. Trying to challenge the strong piece already. Or queen e1. They're quite similar. But what we see in the game is pawn e3, very natural move, opens the eyes of the queen, but there's an amazing tactic here to generate a huge attack. Can you find what Fabi should have played? So the move is bishop takes on h4. Well done if that one occurred to you, because after pawn takes back, the queen streams in, mate in one threatened, and the top move to fight against that is queen takes on g4. That's when you know you're in trouble. Because if you sidestep with the rook, you can go like this. There's no immediate knockout blow. This is how the game can proceed. And then f5. And these pawn pushing and then the knight hopping in some lines. The rook about to open up. It's just an irresistible attack. You know, this one's not playing in the defense. Nor are these so much. You can lift in a minute. But it should be a winning attack. It's -5.5. So that was the way to go. But Fabi plays pawn h5, spending 8 minutes on that move or so, maybe even 9. Hugely down on time now. So we see queen e2 played. You can still even go for the tactic. Not as strong, but workable. a6, however, rook fd1. We see the expansion, knight d2 back, and f5. Still, the black position is impressive, taking the entire centre. Knight f3 played, but amazingly, Gukesh finds a counterpunch here. Now, the best way to go is with knight b4, because if you get kicked with a3, you subtly create a weakness on b3. There's some lines going on. But let's stick with the game, because bishop f6, and it allows an incredible breakout of the position. Can you guess what Gukesh played here? So well done if you saw the idea. The pawn push of d4, and you're cracking things open. Now in the game we see e4 played. If captures, which is good in some of the lines, then the queen is suddenly on the bishop here. It retreats. Now you take here, queen has to move. Good game for white, a pawn ahead, and obviously it's quite a monster pawn. It's a passed pawn, and you've got a good domination of the centre. So let's run back. No takes. We saw pawn e4, but now we see one of the problems with the knight on c6, as well as the bishop here. We see one of the problems with the fact that the bishop can't take here in some of the lines, because d5 is played. And after takes, bishop recaptures, you maintain the fork, so you're going to win one of your pieces back. The knight jumps into e5 and now takes on e6, takes with check, queen recaptures, and the queen saves itself from the gaze of the rook. Looks like you're doing okay, going to win your pawn back here, but bang, the knight centralizes, queen takes, bishop takes, knight takes, because you don't really want to take with the rook and lose an exchange, nor do you want to take with the pawn, ruin your structure. So this was how the game proceeded, but there's a sting at the end of the tail here, a beautiful tactic that gives Gukesh this incredible endgame. Can you find the top move? So well done if you saw queen takes on f5. Now I should say actually, back here, you could have taken here and then take on h5. Also good, they're kind of equally top. But boy, is this the most swashbuckling move. Queen captures was played. What else to do, right? If you try and take the knight, well then you're getting taken with a rook. If you go like this, well then you lose an entire queen. No good. What else to say? I'm not really sure what else to explore. Takes was played, but this is the point. You give the royal fork here, 3 at once. Now the king goes, winning back that queen there, and this is how the game proceeded. The knight centralizing, now a beautiful pawn push to support it, and Gukesh is 10 minutes up on the clock. Wow, just taking the game to the world number 2. Now this knight threatens, and you can't take. There's a pin. So we see this rook hit the knight. It forces this liquidation, but we don't see takes on d6. c5 would drop, and Fabi wants to hold on to it. It's a big source of counterplay, but rook e5, stamping it out here. We do eventually see this exchange of prisoners. This is how the game proceeded. Gukesh a pawn ahead, and he goes to work masterfully here. He's really developing into an incredible player. He's got some endgame prowess as well as middle game. Openings, sure he's not the full package, but boy is this guy resilient, and at the end of the day he's eking out results here. Brings the king over, gives up g pawn for a pawn, and look at this, loses another pawn, material restored, but how do you get round and stop the white pawn? We see a resignation here, because if Fabi goes like this, you carry on pushing. Here's a sample line, bring the rook behind, or even just make the queen straight away, and you just don't have enough to try and get those pawns down the board and do some funny business. White's just going to win the game. Let's pause it there. Checkmate in 6 to come. Gukesh then played Magnus in the third and final round of the day. Do have a look at the video on screen in case you missed that one yesterday. Hope you enjoyed this, and I'll be back Saturday with then some updates on the Rapid Day 3, bit of blitz. We'll see how we're going. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you soon. Cheers.